Man, that was
Happy Tuesday.
I heard that.
Did you hear that?
I definitely heard that. That came through very clearly. Deb just cracked her knuckles, and that it sounded like you broke someone's back. Like it was that loud.
I
Man,
didn't realize it would be that loud.
it was very loud. It's like you did that. Like you put it right up to the mic and went. I'm not even going to address the fact you said Happy Tuesday. All I heard was the crack.
My mic is right here. Well, I don't have a mic. It's just my Mac speaker.
We're aware. I'm aware that you don't have a mic.
Yeah. I'm working on it. I have a converter, but then the mic that I told you, I was texting you, and the mic that I plug into the converter for this Mac, it's like the same quality as if I weren't using a mic. So I need to get a new mic.
Yeah.
Or something.
No, we were texting back and forth about that. And yeah, it was this, I think it's the same brand of mic that I have for when we do in-person recording. And that we got that stuff way back when we first started recording podcast. And at that point, you're still kind of in that headspace where it's like, let's not go crazy with the equipment because we don't know if we're going to be doing this in 5 or 6 years. We don't even know if we're going to do it next week. So let's just get something that will be worth what we're doing right now. And so that's what we got. So it's not bad when we do in person, but there's definitely a clear difference in the quality. So when I saw you sent me a picture of the mic you had, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm very familiar and I know how cheap that mic was. So yeah, I may have suggested it to you when you bought it. I can't remember.
Probably. I don't remember. It's been a few years.
Yeah, it has been a minute for sure. Yeah. So I'm much happier that you have a new laptop that you can record with rather than the mic, because the mic sounds fine, but it can always sound better. Yeah. That's with everything. But anyways, none of that matters right now because it has nothing to do with our topic. So Deb, what are we talking about today?
It kind of has something to do with our topic. Okay. Because
interesting. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know. Because with the whole mic situation, and I'm like, oh, whatever, it's not working. The converter's not working. Well, you know what? Maybe the problem is me, and I need to get a new mic.
Well done.
And fix it myself.
Well done. All right. I didn't know how you were going to tie that in. I was not connecting the dots at all, but you're very nice. A true pro.
It just came to me just now. That was a perfect example. We were texting about what topic our solo episode should be about. Josh and I have had a busy weeks, month, year, whatever. Josh has kids. I don't. I'm just a full-time child in and of myself. So it takes a lot to me to take care of me.
You have a bunch of kids that you work with.
Yes. Yes, there's that. Yeah. So anyway, but speaking of kids, I got my topic from my kids. So
really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's part of it. So cool. First of all, the list, I sent Josh a list of topics that I pulled from, here's a little teaser, topics that I pulled from my hopefully upcoming new and improved Not Here to Judge
Very nice
podcast.
Yay.
So I don't know if you're ready for me to say that yet. Nothing's recorded yet. We're in the works. So we're just rough draft. Me and Kaylin and I are doing some, rough drafting of topics. So that's what I sent to Josh. I'm like, here's what I have for Not Here to Judge. We could tie it into Connectable, but Not Here to Judge is more like relationship, mental health, like dating podcast. Sure. So, but this topic I think could go towards anything. Anyway, so let me tell you how I thought of this topic. And again, it's nothing mind-blowing and it's not brand new information or groundbreaking or anything. But anyway.
We've never claimed to be that. We've always said, sorry, not to cut you off, but we've always said for this podcast, that's not the point of this podcast. We don't claim to be experts in anything, but we do like to start the conversations. And so we bring up things that hopefully connect with people and different topics, guests, all those different things that connect with people. So we've never claimed to be pros. And even when we make a joke and we clip it and put it out there on social media, you'd be surprised how many people think that we're acting like professionals. They've clearly never listened to our podcast, yet their comments reflect a very different mentality towards us, which is fine. We know what we're doing when we put those clips out, but it's always interesting when people decide to respond on YouTube
and claim that I've dated them or something.
That's happened once.
Always fun. Okay. Yes. But anyway, so I think it was 2 weeks ago. So every Monday we take our classes for a walk around campus. We call it the Husky Walk. because Huskies are a mascot.
It's
So
not
it's
because big
just
kids have to do the walk.
no, Husky walk. We're teaching them to just a different form of exercise, power walk. They have to finish it in a certain amount of time. They have to walk fast. Anyway, but it's nice when it's a nice day out too. It's just a nice little break from everything else. And there's about 3 or 4 classes walking together. And as teachers, we're like spread out throughout the walk, to monitor and to just walk with them. And I normally don't pay attention to my kids when they're talking. I just kind of tune them out unless I hear a cuss word, and then I jump in and say something, but I just don't, like, that's their personal conversation. But for some reason, this girl was talking to her friend, and the statement that I'm about to read just was like so loud and clear. She didn't even talk loud. I just, for some reason, my ears just kind of like gravitated towards it. I typed it down right away. I grabbed my phone and I quickly put it in my notes right after she said it. So I don't know what prompted this conversation. This is all I heard. But she told her friend, I think if you're constantly having relationship problems in your life, then maybe you're the problem. So,
there we go. Straightforward.
Wow. Mind blowing. So anyway, I wrote it. I got my notes out. I typed it up and I texted Kaylin, and I'm like, I don't know why, but this just kind of, we need to talk about this. I don't know. It just kind of was like, again, it's not groundbreaking or anything, or it's not going to be, in a best-selling book that I write or anything, but I just thought it was just a good thing to think about. Like taking accountability for things. And a lot of times I think we walk around with a victim mentality in some things. We've all been there. Some of us do it a lot. Some of us do it a little bit. But at some point or other, all of us do it with something. And it takes a lot to just kind of look at everything around you and to be like, wow, I think it's me. It's like the Taylor Swift song, Hi, it's me.
Yeah.
I'm the problem. It's me. So I just thought it was interesting. And for me personally, the thing that popped in my head was just my personal life with like my relationships. Not so much friendships, but just like romantic relationships in my dating life,
Sure.
just for some things. So hence that's boom, topic for Not Here to Judge.
Sure.
But we can definitely open it up to other things. It doesn't have to be just about that. So I'm wondering, so that being said, I have a bunch of notes I could go off.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm wondering what your thoughts are. So when you hear that statement, what do you think of? And again, the statement was, I think if you're constantly having relationship problems in your life, then maybe you're the problem. And replace the word relationship with anything. Let's say I think if you're constantly having financial problems, then maybe you're the problem. I think if you're constantly having career problems, then maybe you're the problem. Like it doesn't have to be relationships. That's just the word she used with her friend. But I want to know your thoughts when you hear that statement.
Yeah, I feel like you and I have talked about this. It's been a minute, but we talked about this, I think, on the Character Combine podcast when it related specifically to sports and athletes. And yeah, I think it's a good topic. I think there's some truth to that for sure. And I think even if, I guess speaking specifically to what your student said, even if in that situation, based on what it sounds like, even if it's not necessarily a problem with the person, like if they're having all these issues, maybe it's them. It could be them. It might be something that they're doing or not doing, or a way that they're behaving or carrying themselves. Or there could be the fact that there's something broken in the way that they view other people, right? And so their judgment towards other people and the people that they connect themselves with is not good, right? Like we've all been in those situations where you think a relationship will be one thing, you get into it, and it's not at all. And then you get into another relationship, or you develop another friendship, or you work, like you said, there could be a bunch of different things. Some of it could just be your perspective is a little bit off in the way you see things. And I think you even mentioned it last week, like there could be a people pleasing element, which I guess still comes back to you, but it could mean that the way you see things or the way you judge things or the way you evaluate things is a little bit off. So maybe it's not something that's necessarily wrong with you, but you keep attaching yourselves to the wrong people or the wrong things. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. But I do think, and I think I can't remember if you and I talked about this before, but I think a lot of times when you hear people that are going through, again, let's just say it's a relationship issue or a work issue, and they're like, it's just constantly, oh, these people are always doing this at work. They just aren't carrying their weight. And there's always those issues. Very few times do you hear people say, I messed up. This one's on me. Because of what I did here, it affected the rest of the group. It's never that way. It's usually when you hear someone broke up with someone, their friends surround them. And it's like, oh, you can do better. You can, you know, I mean, you always hear a lot of those conversations. That person wasn't right for you. All these things. Very few times, and maybe they're just not made public. Very few times you hear someone say, you know, honestly, this might be something that you're doing, or I can point to 2 or 3 things that you do that maybe are the cause of the problem. You know, maybe it wasn't going to work out anyways, but was it all the other person? I don't know. I think we have to accept some responsibility sometimes for things that are our fault. And I think there's something in people that it's easier to find reasons why it's not your fault, right? Rather than looking inward and really dissecting yourself and your personality and your character and trying to figure out what it is that maybe is in you that's causing the problem. Right. That's just, you know, I think it's a good topic. All that to say, I think it's a good topic, and I think it'll be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, like you said, it just goes back around. It just, as soon as she said that, the first word that came to mind is like accountability on myself and what I want. So like, even if I were to replace the word relationship with like job, like, you know, I think if you're constantly having problems at work, then maybe you're the problem. And I don't mean that to be like you're doing, so I don't mean it to, for people to look inward and say, there's something wrong with me. I'm constantly doing something wrong, and like shame yourself. Cause I know that can be a spiral situation as well. But the way I see it, it could be, okay, what could I change in my thoughts and my thought process to get the desired like result or outcome that I want?
Sure.
And so there's that too. Sorry, I live in an apartment and there's a child just like screaming outside of my door.
Can't even hear it. Shout out to Riverside FM. We'll see if the noise reduction setting really works.
It's distracting me.
Apparently he doesn't agree with your point.
Like child crying. But anyway, so just your thought process. Like, for example, like for me at work, if I'm constantly, I'll just use my own work, for example, I'm constantly having like irritated at work. Like I have to like, and it's not enjoyable anymore or fun. And it's centered around because this kid is doing this and this kid is doing this. And I'm constantly on this kid for this, this, and that. While that might be true for me, I could be like, okay, well, I can only change me. Like you can't make anybody do anything.
Sure.
Right. So for me, I like literally had to tell myself like you just cannot let it bother you. Don't take it personally. And this is just a learning experience for these kids and they're learning, and you just move on to the next period. And then it's the next day and it's a new day. And so I had to, Kaylin and I at work now, when we can see that we're getting stressed, we look at each other and we're like, we're not stressing. We're not stressing.
Yeah.
We're not doing it. And it sounds sarcastic, but it really helps because it's true. It's like, no, yeah, we're not going to stress about this. We're going to do our job. We're going to do what we're supposed to do. And it's not like we're just going to walk away and say, you know, screw this, even if you feel like doing that,
Sure.
you know.
Sure.
It's really allowed me to change my thought process to make work more enjoyable for myself. So at the end of the day, so it's just something like that too. Like even if you have to switch your thinking up, which is not easy and it takes practice and it takes, you know, a while to like develop that. And sometimes it's impossible. Sometimes it's like, no, I can't get over this today. I'm just upset today.
Yeah, sure.
But if it's a constant pattern, there's something that you can possibly do inward for yourself to get a desired outcome that you want. So like if my goal at work is to be less stressed, like I don't want to take this home with me. Like I don't want to think about this later, you know, tonight. Like this has been such a crappy day and these kids are just going crazy because school's almost out. then if my goal is to be less stressed, then literally, like Kaylin said, we're not stressing. This is no, we're not stressed.
Right.
That camaraderie helps for sure.
Sure.
So I'm really lucky in that aspect that I get to work with my friends and we all kind of help each other and calm each other down and be like, this is okay. This is just part of we do this every year. And so, so I just wanted to add that aspect as well, that it could be, that's just one example, but, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, go ahead.
I agree with that. And that's, I think what you said too, is you have people around you that are there for you and you can lean on. And I think it's important to, if you're talking about this idea of, am I the problem, and trying to evaluate if you're the problem or if it's other things, or maybe you're part of the problem, maybe not the full problem. I think having people around you that you can trust, that you're connected with, that will tell you the truth, even though it may be uncomfortable. I think surrounding yourself with people that understand that the value, or the amount that they care for you and love you, is more valuable to them than potentially hurting your feelings, telling you something that you may not want to hear, is really important. I don't think you can undervalue or I guess overvalue those types of relationships in your life. And I think you have to have people like that. It could be one, it could be a few, whatever it is. I think you just need to have people in your life that are willing to tell you those things, because that's going to reduce the amount of times that you are the problem in those situations. But on the flip side of that, if you have those people, you have to be willing to hear what they're saying, and not just listen to what they're saying, but like really hear what they're trying to say, and understand why they're saying it to you. So I think that's part of the problem. Yeah. Some people like this idea of having people that have their back and that will tell them things that they need to hear. But when it comes to the actual practical application of listening to what they're saying and being open to what they're saying, a lot tougher, especially when it's a high intense situation, like if you go through a breakup, or if it's a job situation that you just can't quite figure out. Having people in your corner to tell you what you're doing wrong and where you're right and where you're wrong is important. But if you're not willing to listen to what they're saying, if you get offended every time they bring something to the table, then it's like, well, that friendship kind of loses some value, because it's not an open friendship where you guys can communicate clearly. It's a friendship where it's all good when you're being told things that you want to hear, but when the moment something kind of goes up against you, or it goes against what you're doing, is spoken to you, and then you shut down. It's like, well, that's not how it works. That might be part of the problem, right? That'd be a clear sign that's a problem in you. But I do think what you said is great. Having people around you that can be there for you in those moments, to either support you or kind of help sharpen you, is really important. Like that's a good thing to have, for sure. And who knows, maybe some of the people that have some of those issues where they are the problem, maybe they don't have that setup. You know what I mean? Maybe they don't have those people in their life.
Yeah, I think it's important for that to go both ways, right? Like if you do have someone in your life who is willing to hold you accountable, that first of all, that you asked for it, kind of, you know what I'm saying? That it's like, welcome. Like, if, for example, like Josh, if you and I like have that type of like, okay, we don't, everybody, but just this is hypothetical, right?
I'm not even sure what she's about to say, so I'm not sure if I'm offended or.
Where if Josh is giving me feedback on like, like if you like podcast stuff, sure. Like, hey, could you, if I say, hey, tell me if I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Like, tell me if I'm saying too much, or if I'm whatever, if I'm slacking or whatever, my conversations start to suck, let me know. So if I ask you for feedback,
should we do this on air, or should we talk later?
Then if I'm willing to accept that feedback, then I hope it'd go both ways to you're like, yeah, and you let me know if I'm doing something as well. Like, so I do have a friend to where she and I both confide in each other about like our dating lives. And we try to, because it's really easy. Sorry, I'm going to finish that sentence. But first, it's really easy for women. I can't speak for men, but it's really easy for women to, have each other's backs and to quickly, start like bashing the significant other and be like, saying like what they're doing wrong.
Sure.
It's really hard to call your friend out and say something, hey, like that's you. And I think you need to apologize to your significant other. So I have a friend that we do that for each other. We confide in each other, because I definitely don't think the whole world needs to know every detail of like what, what you're going through in your personal life. But I think if you have one or two people, I think it's important, because she and I will give examples of like, okay, well, this conversation happened, and this is how I responded. Who I feel like they're in the wrong, but I don't know, I might be in the wrong. So we'll give each other honest feedback. Like I'll tell her, I'll be like, actually, like, I think you're overreacting, and I think that, the person they're dating, I think that this is what they meant, and I think you're just kind of overreacting a little bit.
Sure.
And then they'll do the same for me, and we'll just be completely honest with each other. And of course, at the end of the day, we are like, I have your, like, obviously I pick you, like, you're like, whatever you want to do is correct.
Sure.
Like, we always joke and say, the other person's dead to me. If they hurt you, they're dead to me.
Sure.
So we say that,
Sure.
but I think it's important to just kind of, if you ask for feedback, that you're able to give feedback to the other person as well. It's not a good feeling if you have someone who wants to, a friend who wants to better you and wants you to do better, but it's constantly them telling you what you're doing wrong. And they're not open to feedback about themselves or asking,
Sure.
hey, but check me too, So when it's one-sided, that can be that cannot feel good at all in a friendship or whatever, in that example of what we're talking about. So I just think I don't know. I've learned this year, I gave myself a goal this year that I was just going to not read into things and let things get to me. Because for me, when I start to assume things in a friendship situation, whatever career situation, like my coworkers, or just, people related, or in a romantic relationship, if I start to assume things and I don't actually get in there and ask details and questions, to get an answer, if I start assuming things, then I start creating scenarios in my head. And then all of a sudden I think that, and again, it's like the people pleaser part too. I think they're mad at me, or there's something, or maybe I did something wrong. So, that being said, for me, I'm like, I'm the problem in that. I'm just assuming things, and I'm creating the scenario in my head when I could just go up and ask the person, or just don't assume at all and just leave it as it is for face value for what they tell me or don't tell me, or whatever.
Right.
And so, sorry, that was kind of vague, but that's just another example of something for me personally that I've learned just recently and over the years, to just kind of be like, okay, like my thoughts are on me and not anybody else. So, so now I'm always kind of like, it's me, I'm the problem. I need to fix this for myself. Not always in a negative way, but just like, what can I do to fix this for myself? Because I can't control the other person.
Yeah.
But communication is always important for sure.
Yeah. And I know you were semi joking there, but that is, I think, worth bringing up though, because I think obviously the topic is, am I the problem? But I do think there's another group of people out there that probably are on the complete opposite side of that. Some people you think that don't realize they're the problem. They have some glaring issues. And then on the flip side, you have some people that think anything that happens, any breakdown, any issue, any breakup, any problem that occurs is their fault. And they always take it on themselves, assuming that whatever went wrong was because of them. And that can be just as problematic, right? Like, it's a problem if you're unaware of weaknesses or issues that you might be bringing to the table. It's a very different but still problematic thing if you're on the opposite side, where you think everything is your fault and the other person can do no wrong. And so I think it's worth bringing up too. Like, there's two extremes to this conversation, and obviously, if you think that everything is your fault and everything that goes sideways is on you, I think there's probably some things that need to be looked at there as well, because you're taking too much responsibility. Whereas one person's not willing to take any responsibility, another person's willing to take too much responsibility, and that's not a great place to be either, and it's not a fun place to be, when you're in that place. And so, it's a challenge. All those things are a challenge. And like you said, I think the assumption part of things is really difficult, because the example that you gave, if you're say it's in a relationship that you're in, and you have this thing in your head that you're assuming and you're building up, and you have these fake fights. Everybody does it, right? Like, you have these fake fights. Like, if this happens, then I'm going to say this, this, and this. and then
Right.
it's just constantly in your head, constantly in your head. And then when the top finally blows off and you have an interaction with that person, you come at it hot, right? Like all of a sudden, like you're at 100 already, and this person's like, "What happened? Like we haven't talked about any of this because you've had the fight for 3 weeks. That person had no clue that they were in the middle of a fight, but you have been going to war for the last 3 weeks, and then they're just thrown into it, and then it causes this weird dynamic. It's like, I don't even know why you're snapping on me. It's like, yo, you did this. Like, oh, a bunch of stuff happened that I was not aware of, and so it's a lot more challenging to have those interactions. Or so excuse me, it's a lot better to have those interactions, those uncomfortable conversations in the moment, because it's way better and it's way more effective. Because if you don't have those conversations and you wait for those things to naturally happen when things blow up, then you got to deal with a ton of stuff that wouldn't have been present if you would have just dealt with the uncomfortable nature of approaching someone and saying, hey, this is this thing that I've noticed. Can we talk about it? You know what I mean? It's going to be uncomfortable no matter what, but one way when it's more in your control is going to be way less uncomfortable and way less problematic. You know, like you said, if you assume things, then it becomes a bigger issue, and it's a much more uncomfortable conversation. But again, that's one of those things too. Like that's probably something that some people deal with, right? That could be am I the problem? I am the problem because I typically assume things. That's on me. And like you said, a lot of those things are things that you can, hopefully get better at, right? Things you can change or adjust or evolve in, as you would say. So, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I said, all that to say, I kind of went off track there a little bit, but yeah, there's definitely two sides to it. And there's one side that says, hey, I'm the problem. The other side says, I don't know, they must be the problem. And both sides are equally, I think, problematic.
Yeah. In terms of, if someone else is involved in, like you said, like, we just gave the example of the fight that you have in your head with them for, a few days or weeks or whatever, and they weren't even included in it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you bring it up. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's another example that I can think of with this topic of just taking accountability and just trying to fix it yourself is the one-sided ones where it's like there's so for example, like let's say at work, and I've had this problem with work and with relationships. Another example is I would say yes to like everything, or like, and it got to the point where people would like volunteer me for shit. And then I would just I would just say, oh, okay, sure, I'll do that. And in my head, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I don't want to freaking do that. Why'd you volunteer me? You know? So it's me saying yes. And in my head, I'm like instantly resentful. And so I've gotten myself into situations like work-wise to where I'm like just stewing and I'm just so irritated. And the anger and irritation is geared at the whatever it is I'm doing, or at, that person that asked me to help or wanted me to help. And I said yes. And all of a sudden it's like misdirected anger. And at the end of the day, it's just, I had to look at myself, and this took a long time for me to learn. It's like, listen, I talk to myself a lot, so I sit down and I'm like, yeah, right. Shocker. I can talk.
I'm so surprised.
I can talk to a brick wall, and I talk to myself. Sure. Yeah. It's, I sit down and I'm like, listen, you're angry, but this is your life. You're allowed to say no.
Sure.
How about you say no to things, and then you won't be so pissed, and you're pissed at these people. They didn't do anything. They just asked you to help and you said yes. Like, what is,
right.
So that's another example of when I think of maybe I'm the problem, because in that instance, it's me, because I'm the one choosing to do it. But for some reason I'm irritated that I'm doing it. And it's like, well, you said yes, you don't have to say it.
Sure.
So there's that too. And so that's, anyway, there's some subcategories we can go into, like, quitting or, evolving. Like we've talked about, I love talking about those topics, obviously, but, and those are the one-sided situations that I can think of as well, about just like, okay, yeah, I am the problem for myself.
Yeah.
Like I'm like sabotaging myself in that way, that I can change and do something different in order to create the life I want to create. And then same thing with like, romantic relationships. And so I'll go in more into depth when Kaylin and I talk about it. I'm not here to judge because she's got lots of examples as well. But just on that side of the romantic relationship side, just in the dating world. And my personal goal is not to like, in my head, I'm not like, okay, I want to be married by this age and have kids by this age and da da da. Okay, first of all, everyone who's listening, if you know me, I don't want kids. So
I was gonna say
that's already
I
off
was
the
surprised that was
list.
even on the list of things.
No.
I feel like people heard that like, what? What's she talking about?
What?
Go ahead.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So that's right, but I don't have like this itinerary of things I need to do. So I'm not stressed about that. But in the dating world, like, obviously I am dating because I think I do want to find my person someday and like kind of chill with someone.
Sorry. I
But
didn't mean to laugh at that. But the way that sentence was starting to go, it sounded like The Bachelor. It's like, I think one day I would love to find true love. Like, oh geez. Can't believe she just ripped that off from The Bachelor. I'm sorry. That was immature of me. I apologize.
I have not watched The Bachelor in a long time. I've actually been into Love is Blind, and that show is insane. I would never do it. I think it's stupid. I think the whole concept is dumb, but it's a great entertainment. I will say that.
Can I just say,
So,
knowing you for as long as I have, I not for 1 second do I believe that you would not do that show. I just don't believe it. I feel like if given the opportunity, if that studio
no,
approached you and said, Deb McCollum, we think you'd be great,
no,
would you consider?
absolutely not. I would be mortified.
All right.
I would just. There's no reason. No, I'm already like not nervous, but like us being on camera on Spotify, I'm already like, oh my god, like people are watching me talk. Like this is so embarrassing.
We've
So
been
I'm
out there
just
on
like,
YouTube for a long time. How long have you been nervous?
well, not nervous, but like I won't watch it. I won't go back and watch
Oh, that's
it.
fine.
I
Yeah.
won't talk. I'll listen. I could barely listen to myself talk. Anyway, there's no way, man. There's no way. Yeah. And then and the editing they do, like they can edit and make you be a certain way or a type of person.
Sure.
Yeah, no, there's no way. Absolutely not. But it's pretty entertaining, and that's why.
There you go.
So, yeah. Anyway.
So, okay, I'm sorry. I did not mean to derail your thought. It's just the way that started to sound. It's like, absolutely, one day I would love to find my true love. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's about to say this.
Oh no, I didn't say true love. I just said my person.
That's why I said like the smirk came out because I thought that's where it was going, but you changed. So good for you. Anyways, sorry.
No, so like that's I think that could be the goal someday. So I'm in the dating world, but I tend to, and this is not to throw shade at everybody I've dated. There's been some really cool people, really great people. That just didn't work out, but a lot of the time it's like the same type of person. And my friends always joke and they're like, Deb, you have a type. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that even mean? And so anyway, I just kind of have to like step back and then I'll joke and I'll say, they find me. What are you talking about? Like, I just attract them, I guess. Like, like I'm all like, like I'm not like I'm a victim. And so I have had to step back and be like, okay, I don't have to, say yes to this person or this person or this person and date them. I can step back. So the thing, and I got this quote from Sex and the City, so I can't like say that I thought of this quote,
Okay.
But in terms of like, having the similar issues, I guess, in relationships, the thing that they all have in common is me. And so it's like, okay. And that's the root. That was one of the first things I could think of when I heard back to the beginning of this, saying, I heard my students saying, if you're constantly having relationship problems in your life, then maybe you're the problem. And so it's something to like think about if you're single and you're not happy with, time and time and time again with people that you're dating. And if you see similarities, it's like, well, you're for myself, I can only speak for myself. I'm gravitating myself towards, these individuals when I could just tweak what I want a little bit on my list and just kind of, I don't, I wrote down in my notes, and this is more for Kaylin than for you, but because this is like, anyway, but it said, I wrote down, these guys don't have that much power over me. So I can't like say like, oh, they just picked me and I just like sat back and like, and then I can't do anything, no. And so anyway, I'm getting into
Yeah,
it.
you're
So
probably right. That doesn't apply to me so much. I don't know. There might be some
no.
of you guys out there that are after me, but I am married. Very sorry.
So this, but so it's something to where it's like I don't have to allow people to enter my space. That's up to me. So in that aspect, again, for myself, maybe someone listening can relate, but to this, but I am the problem that in that aspect if I'm choosing the same type of person over and over and over again. It's kind of like I believe, the universe, I've heard someone say the universe will keep throwing you problems or, the same issues or problems until you've learned it
Sure.
finally. And so that's where that comes from. It always has, the universe has a way of sending us the same message until we finally learn it. And so in that aspect, because in my head, I would be like, feel like, kind of be like, what, like, kind of be defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, I guess this is my life now. But it's like, no, like you can not pick certain people and you can be single and that's totally fine too. But anyway, I'm getting more into the dating world type episode here, but that's where I got the inspiration to start talking about this. Like
Gotcha.
maybe I'm the problem.
Hmm.
Yeah. And again, it's like the one sided thing. It's like you can make different decisions for your life. It doesn't have to be relationships, it could be career. Like if you're unhappy in your career, instead of just, you know, again, being upset about it and kind of like, bitching to yourself all the time, it's totally possible to just look inward and be like, okay, well, what do I want? And what do I need to change to get what I want? Or like, what, side hustle do I need to start to get what I want while I'm still in this job? It's just, we could branch out and talk about all kinds of different things
Sure.
with this topic. But I think a lot of people don't take, and I'm talking about myself too, accountability for basically what you want in life.
Mm-hmm.
And most people want happiness
Sure.
and peace and love and all that
Sure.
stuff. And so if it's not something that you're getting right now, instead of blaming other people and making other people change or wanting other people to fix things for you, then what can you do on the inside? Like what can you do inward, outward, so that you are, happier or more peaceful or feel more loved or whatever. I think there's something important about that, because I think we can all easily fall into like the victim mode, like everyone's out to get us
Sure.
type mentality.
Sure.
um yeah, so I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And I think it's, the victim mentality thing. I've always thought it's easier
Mhm.
to take that stance. It's not as beneficial, but it's a lot easier to take that stance because it's a simple solution, right? It has to be that person, the problems with that person, or the problems with that group of people. That's like why I'm suffering right now, why I'm struggling with what I'm struggling with. It's not me. It's because they acted this way, or they made this choice, or they decided to do this instead of what they should have done. It's always easier to do that. And you and I have joked, and I've said this on a bunch of podcasts before. One of the things that drives me nuts, and it is the accountability thing. You and I have both played sports. We've played like rec sports before, and I think rec sports is one. Athletes sometimes have the best ability to make excuses. You wouldn't think they would, but they are some of the best people at making excuses. And especially when you start playing these adult sports leagues, everybody's
Yeah.
got an excuse. You miss a fly ball. Oh, the sun was in my eyes. The sun's behind you. Try again. Oh, this grass, they didn't cut this grass short enough. It's like they just mowed it yesterday. It's not the grass. Oh, what kind of bat is this? Oh, it's one of those bats. My bat's better. I forgot my bat at home, but my bat's better. That's why I didn't get a hit. No, you just suck. That's the bottom line. You didn't have a good day. You weren't hitting very well. There's always something, right? Like, oh, I brought the wrong shoes. Well, no, you brought baseball cleats to the softball field. Of course, you're going to play. You're fine. It's not your shoes. There's always these excuses, but they're easier to make those excuses because it's always pointing away from you. It can't be
Mhm.
me, and I'll take as much time as I need to explain every single reason why this is not my fault, because it's
Yeah.
easier. It doesn't require
Mhm.
you to look inward. It doesn't require
Yeah.
you to do a self-examination of, all the areas that you have weaknesses, or all the areas that you potentially failed, or all the areas that you might have just made a mistake. It's like, you know what? Maybe it's not, maybe I'm not having a bad day at the softball field. Maybe I'm just not very good today. And that's okay.
Yeah.
That's a more honest answer. It's a more honest examination of yourself. So it's like, we don't need to keep making all these excuses, because you know what the bottom line is? People see you making the excuses and it annoys everybody. It is the most annoying thing to hear someone do that, especially when it comes to something that's not that important, like playing rec adult softball on a Tuesday night. Like, it's not that important. So just own up to it. You make a mistake, own up to it. Take accountability. Life will be so much better that way. And it's a better path moving forward too, right? Like, if you are constantly standing there making excuses about why it's not your fault, you're never going to move forward. You're going to be stuck in that same place forever, because you're not growing. As you would say, you're not evolving, because it's not your fault. You have no reason to grow, right? Because it's not your fault. It's everybody else's. So you're good. But I think the people that take accountability and that are willing to own up to their mistakes, give themselves an honest look, and change those things, those are the people that move forward. Those are the people that will get out of that situation, because they're giving themselves a real honest look. And so I think, I think it's a really important thing to do. The softball thing really drives me crazy. Any kind of rec sports drives me crazy. It's like, why are we doing this? You're a grown man. Don't make these dumb excuses. No one cares that much, but now everybody's annoyed with you. Please stop. You're driving me crazy. I've played with a couple that were terrible at this. Every single thing. It's like, oh, my glove's broken. Your glove's fine. Your glove's fine. Stop this. But I was going to ask you, so I went on that little tangent, that little rant. I did want to ask you, and I don't need you to give specifics. I'm just curious when it comes to the dating thing. And you said that your friends have said you have a type that you tend to gravitate towards. Have you been able to, over the last however many years that you've been dating people, have you been able to identify what that thing is inside yourself that causes you to connect with those types of people? Or is that still something that you're still trying to figure it out? Like I said, I'm not necessarily interested in what that thing is. That's between you and the wall that you talk to sometimes. But as far as, I'm just curious, like, have you been able to identify that in yourself? Has someone else in your life been able to point that out in you, as far as what that might be? Or, you know what I'm saying? That's makes sense.
A little. Yes, all of the above.
Sure.
I'm still working on it. I've identified some things, and my friends have pointed out some things very nicely,
Sure.
So the things that I've found for myself, so I'm a teacher. I'm so my trait is I'm a caretaker.
Sure.
Like, even if I don't come across as that, I just can't help it. I want people to be okay, and I want to take care of people. And that's why my friends are always like, you'd be such a good mom. And I'm like, I know I'd be a kick-ass mom. I just don't want kids.
Sure.
I just don't want my own kids.
Sure.
So I have other people's kids during the day, and then they go home. Right. It's great. And so I like helping people, and I like, the caretaker thing. So that being said, I think that's something that I'm learning to be careful not to do that in a relationship, because then I start attracting the men who just want to be taken care of. And so, what is that face?
No, I'm not gonna say anything. It's just like, okay, yeah, I'll say, okay. And I'm not trying to be rude towards anybody.
You'll be a guest on Not Here to Judge. We can go off on these things.
All right,
go for it. Yeah,
I'm still not convinced she's going to invite me to her podcast, but that's fine. It's a topic for another day. But no, I just, like, me personally, that's a gross statement. Like, I don't like that statement. And again, I'm just saying, I just don't like that statement. It's gross, because the problem is, it's true. There are people in this world, and especially for me, being a guy, hearing that there's guys that like to be taken care of, it's a gross statement to me. I'm not trying to be judgmental, but it is. Like, it's a weird statement to me. You know what I mean?
And it's not, and I want to preface by saying, it doesn't mean that I am doing everything.
Sure.
Doesn't, like, I don't know what picture you've just painted in your head, but some people probably could, imagine like me just doing everything, like cooking or
no, that's not
whatever.
That. It's not that.
It's not. It's more of like a mental thing. It's more of like a mental take care of. It's almost like I end up being the more masculine one, and the more, like, a little stronger mentally. And
that's where my mind went.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, it wasn't like, you're doing everything for this person, this is a lazy person, but I think there's a neediness that I think of that's weird to me. Now that might be because that's not my personality. And so I get
Yeah.
people have different personalities. I'm not trying to downplay anybody's personality, but like just that idea. And it really, it's not just a guy thing. It's really for any adult. Like, you know what I mean?
Anybody.
It's really
It's
anybody, but
everybody.
just, I think when you say like, I don't know. Anyways, it's none of my business,
Yeah.
but that's just it's a
Well,
weird
no.
statement to me.
Yeah. Well, and so I do it to and some people, maybe they're okay playing that role, like man or woman or whoever. But for me, at the end of the day, I'll get frustrated because I'm like, I don't want to always be the stronger one.
Mm-hmm.
Like I do that all, like it needs to be like equal. I'm more old school to where I would like, I would in my relationships, and I would like the man to be the one a little stronger,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like that I have to do that all day at work. It's just something about a balance there. So that's one example for like what I've noticed for myself. There's many other examples, but I'll just say that one for now.
Perfect.
Um,
Yeah.
and then my friends, one of my friends, she's a psychiatrist, so this is great. So
Jeez.
I'm like, cool. You are. I was like, cool. Give it to me. What?
He's like,
Tell
you
me.
lay on the couch and just
Tell
let
me.
her have it.
I call her doctor. She cracks
That's
up
funny.
because she's like, don't tell me that. And I'm like, well, she goes, you're too nice. She's like, you're too, you offer to do things, like you're too giving.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like I don't, and I'll take accountability here for this. Like, it's almost like I don't, in some situations, I wouldn't let the other person offer to like do something for
Sure.
me. Like, so that is where my masculine energy comes from as well. And I think it's just like a cycle. It's like okay, like I want to be nurturing. So then I attract someone who wants to be nurtured. And then I'm like, well, I guess I better keep doing, I guess I like, this is my role now. And so then whether within that relationship or in a new one, then I just continue to be like, and then when I say giving, she means like just offering to do things or
Sure.
offering, to just kind of, and then at the end of the day, it's them taking advantage of me. Like, okay, like cool, like she'll do whatever I ask her to do
Yeah.
in terms of just like, I guess, acts of service. If you're thinking of like love languages, like that type of thing. So my psychiatrist friend, she's like, let them offer. Like you need to sit back and receive a little more.
Sure.
Like you're too giving. And I didn't. And she even gave me a scenario, and I failed. I won't.
Oh no, not for the
I
doctor.
failed. Yeah, she's like, let's role play. And she said something, and I said the answer, and she's like, no. And I was like, but this is what I would do in this situation. I would offer this, I would offer to give them a ride or whatever. She's like, no. And so I failed. So anyway, so that's her feedback for me. So it's a little bit of everything. It's something, my friends will tell me, I'll start to figure it out. And I'm still figuring it out. I think we're always a work in progress, and we're always changing, and we're
Yeah.
always learning something about ourselves. So
And you should. That's something that our common friend, she's closer with you, but Coach Mary Jo Truesdale. Um,
Mhm.
Anytime I've had a chance to podcast with her about sports, that's something she's mentioned a lot. Like she learns, and she's a legend. If you're not familiar with the sports world here in Sacramento, she's a legend in the softball world. Has so many years of
Yep.
experience and championships and titles. Like, I mean, she's amazing, but one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Also one of the most competitive people, which is one of my favorite
Yeah.
things about her. But she's always mentioning that how she still learns from her athletes. She has decades of experience compared to the athlete she's coaching, yet she still chooses to have this open mind and learn from her athletes. She would have every right not to. She was like, I'm dope at this. I don't need to listen to anybody. But she doesn't.
Mhm.
And that's why she's still coaching all these years later and still really successful, because she's willing to listen. You know what I mean? So I think it's a really important thing. And I did want to hopefully this is okay to say.
Mhm.
You and I had a conversation. I want to say when we were still doing Character Combine, because when we first started podcasting, you and I told you pretty soon off the bat, like I am a psychopath with this thing. I said I I've been, to like kind of our point earlier, I've been kind of dating this idea of podcasting for a very long time, and I'm just inviting you now to the party. But just so you know, I've been thinking about this thing for quite a few years. So I'm coming to this thing full speed. And would you like to do this as well? And I don't know if you remember this, but there was a point, I think we had been podcasting for a little while, where I just had a conversation with you to the point of you being too nice. We had a conversation and I said, hey, just to be honest with you, like I know we're trying to do all these different things. I have all these different ideas and I just constantly throw them at you. I said, but to be honest with you, I don't know you well enough to understand like if you're being honest with me.
Yeah.
I said,
I remember
I want to believe
me that.
that you are. I said, but I can't get a read on you. And I can't tell if you're just going along with this because you're a really nice person or what it is. But I said, and we had a good conversation. And I think since then it's been awesome. Anytime you've needed to take a break or if I needed to take a break, we've been, I think, honest with each other as far as that. But yeah, early on, it's like, I can't tell. I even told Rachel, I said, I'm gonna have this conversation with Deb because I said, I can't get a read on her. I can't tell if she's
I've
just,
heard that about me before. I must have just a poker face. Like you just can't tell.
it might've been because I'm like, I can't read her because yeah, like I think she's agreeing to this stuff just because she's too nice to say no. So
that used to be the case with other things for sure.
Sure.
Learn to just kind of just say what's on my mind in a obviously in a nice way.
Sure.
And to just do what I feel called to do. But yeah, I used to, well, there's a prime example. Like I used to be way agreeable, like just say yes to everything. Yeah. And so, yeah. So I'm learning, I'm getting better at saying what I want.
See, there you go. What time is it? Make sure we're not going crazy past time. I was curious though, again, this is for her other podcast. When Deb starts, not here to judge up again, we will make sure you guys know here and we will blast all that information out. But, going back again, not to harp on this too much because you'll save all the good stuff for the other podcasts. When it comes to this idea of, is it me or is it not me? Am I the problem? Like you said, you kind of were gravitated towards a certain kind of person. Mm-hmm. And you said there was plenty of times where you're like, I don't want to be the one that has to, just for lack of a better word, take care of this person. You know what I mean? I don't want to always have to do this. But was there, because you have that natural thing in you, like you said, as for a profession, you are basically a caretaker. Are there ever moments where you struggle? Like if you're not doing that enough, you feel like there's something lacking there, right? Because does that make sense? Yeah. Where it's like you're naturally geared to being a caretaker, and if that person is, say you're working, not even necessarily a relationship, but you're working with someone that's way more independent, is there that thing where it's like I should be doing more? Am I not doing enough because that person's not really relying on me? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And let me preface by saying it's not like I don't want it to come across as I don't want to do any of that at all.
Sure.
I think that, I think it's about a balance in terms, I don't know much about relationships anymore, but but in terms of what I want, talking like I'm an expert, I'm not, this is just my experience and my thoughts. Sure. But in terms of what I think I want in a future relationship, it's like a nice balance. Like I'm doing this day for this person. And then the next time, then it's like an ebb and flow, sure. Like kind of whoever needs it in the moment. Boom. Like I got you, you've had a long day or you're struggling with this. Like I'm going to, I'm like, you can lean on me. It's fine. And then vice versa. But so my example was, it got to the point to where no matter what day, who was having what day, I was still always the one that okay, it's fine. You can lean on
sure.
me. But I have been in some relationships where, yeah, they're super independent. They're very, just mentally strong on their own. And I still don't feel like I can lean on them for that as well, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
they don't need me, they don't need to lean on me. And I don't they're too, it's they also don't want to, if I need them, they're like, oh, you're fine type thing. Just to kind of throw that thought out there. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think, yeah, it makes 100%. It makes sense 100%. Because I think sometimes people that are super independent, that just kind of handle everything on their own, it's hard for them to understand why someone else would need help, or it's hard for them to understand why. So it's hard to mentally get there. It's like, well, just do it. Mm-hmm. I can't just do it. I'm struggling right now. I'm falling apart. They're like, okay, but you can still go do it. Yeah. It's a harder thing for someone like that to comprehend.
Yeah. And I think in terms of, it can be a partnership, I mean, you could definitely speak to it, with, being, how long have you and Rachel been married for?
Mm.
You guys. Oh, I'm about to get Josh in
No, I'm
trouble.
kidding. It will be 8 years in June.
So yeah. So anyway, I mean, you could speak to this more, more than me, but like in terms of just there should be like a partnership, and I guess it depends on what people want in a relationship. But yeah, I think independence is important, but it's also hey, like it's okay to lean on the other person back and forth. It's like because you're only human.
Yeah,
So yeah. So in the example of they're two independent both ways. Like they don't need me and they don't want to be there for me.
sure.
that's, like, that's not going to
That
work.
sounds
Like
funny, but yeah,
those are, my friendships are better than this.
sure.
Like I can at least so
Yeah,
yeah, no. And then at that point it's like, then the connection's lost. Then
right.
it's like, okay, cool. Like, and of course I don't want it to be one way to where I'm only leaning on them, but it's like, cool, they don't need me as much. Like this is kind of nice. But then I quickly find out, oh, it's because they want to be complete. Like we are our step. Okay, this is not the partnership I want.
Sure.
So I'm definitely learning. It's a journey.
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, and this is not, this is probably, yeah, probably a better topic for not here to judge. But yeah, I think I heard someone once say, and it's always stuck out to me because I think it's a good way of putting it. A lot of times when you talk about a partnership, a relationship, a marriage, you talk about,
Mhm.
people think of it in this 50-50 split. And that's probably the best way to think of it. You got to think of it as both sides are giving 100%. Because
Mhm.
if both sides give 100%, you're always there. It's never going to be lacking, right? Like someone is always going to be able to pick up the other person. So if someone's having a tough time, the other person's still giving 100%. Whereas if each party is only giving 50%, and say one person's just kind of off their game, then there's a gap between the two sides, right? Because at that point, all you're doing is meeting in the middle, and it's not
Mhm.
really a partnership, but really it should be each side's giving 100%, and then it's always that marriage is always at least the partnership, the marriage, the relationship is always full, right? Because both sides are giving the best of what they have. Even when one of them's down, you're still giving the best of what you have, and I think I've always thought that was a cool way of looking at it, because it's not like you, at least from my perspective, and what we tried to do with my own marriage, it's not like you just give, well, it's like, well, I'm 50%. I am responsible for X, Y, and Z. So once I'm done with that, that's it. I'm done with my responsibilities. I'm done with my part of this. It's like, well, that's not really how it works, because there's gonna be other times where you need to pick up the slack for the other person, and they'll pick up the slack for you. And I've always felt like that's how it's supposed to work. And like you said, each group, I guess what it really comes down to is what um, people, I guess what works for each group of people, right? Each couple,
Yeah.
each friendship. It kind of depends on what you've agreed to, right? I know some
Yeah.
people that do things, people that are married that do things very differently than my wife and I, and it's like, yeah, if that works for them, that's what they've agreed on. It's different to us. It looks weird to us, but that's just, it's opposite of what we would normally do. But if it works for them and they're happy, and they've got a great family, like how can you argue with that? So I think it really comes down to how whatever those two people decide. But um, anyways, I feel like that got way off topic from the am I the problem?
Yeah.
But
You're good.
one thing before we get out of here, one thing I did want to mention, because I was kind of looking up a couple of things about this concept of am I the problem? How to identify that? How to identify if the other person's the problem? One thing that I think is really big, and I think it's important for people to do, but I think it's also incredibly difficult because your pride and your ego come into play. I think apologizing to people is a pretty big
Mhm.
indicator of whether or not you're the problem or someone else is the problem. If there's an issue
Mhm.
and you're unwilling to apologize to someone, or if you can't remember the last time you've had to apologize to someone, that's probably an indicator that you might be the problem, because
Mhm.
that's kind of a big part of human interaction. It's kind of a big part of healthy relationships, is that no matter who you are, you're gonna have bumps in the road. You're gonna have arguments. You're gonna have difficult times. And if you're not willing to apologize, that to me that's a pretty big indicator that, yeah, you might be the part of the problem, because I think your ego and your pride is too involved in this whole thing, and it's not
Mhm.
allowing for a healthy relationship. That doesn't mean that you over apologize. You're apologizing for everything, but I'm talking about like when you know you're in the wrong, or when you can look at the situation and realize, okay, I probably had a pretty decent sized part in this. If you're still not willing to apologize, then yeah, you probably are part of the problem. You probably are the problem if that's the case. And then vice versa, if you're dealing with someone that's never apologized, that you can tell they were in the wrong and they just don't see it that way, that's problematic on their part. So it wasn't just this list that I saw had accountability, which I think is a big one, but I think part of accountability is being willing to kind of swallow your pride and apologize and admit that you were wrong. And if you can't do that, then yeah, you're part of the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if it happens a lot, probably.
Correct.
Yeah.
If it happens a lot. Yeah.
It happens a lot.
But like I said, it's not.
There's some.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, there's some moments I'm thinking of examples and I'm like, no, but I didn't do anything wrong. But I'm like, that was a one-time thing. But then I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I have apologized a lot. Like I had to do a self-check just now as you were saying that. I was like, have I done this?
Yeah, it's a tough thing. And because especially if you're a competitive person, then you don't want to admit that you were wrong, and especially if you're engaged in a back and forth with someone. It's like, yeah, there's a part of you that's like, well, I feel like I'm right, so I want to win this thing. And so it does take, and a lot of times I feel like it comes down to how, I feel like those apologies a lot of times come down to how the topic was approached, right? I've had interactions with my wife where I was, not in the best mood about something, and I was shorter in my interactions, and I had to come back around and apologize because it wasn't even the thing that we were talking about. It had everything to do with just my current demeanor at that time, and I allowed that to get the best of me and respond in a way that wasn't good. I've done that before. She's done that before. We've had those conversations, and I feel like a lot of times those apologies are mainly because of how we responded in that moment. It's not even necessarily that I was like, cool, whatever we were arguing about, I agree. I'm just going to concede. It's not even that. It's a lot of times how you handle the situation is or how well or not well you handle a situation is really what you're apologizing for. A lot of times, in my opinion, but that's just me.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, this was a good topic to jam out about.
I think so.
I think ultimately just, if we were to sum this all up, at least for myself, everyone can kind of take what they want from this, this episode. But like, for me, I'm like, what do I want in life? How am I going to get there? And what can I change about what I'm doing and how I'm responding and how I think about things to get there? Whether that means I need to, like you said, maybe apologize more, or, or maybe I need to, for me, I have to treat different people differently in my life because of the way they're wired.
Sure.
And of the things what they want, but it's because I value them as a friend or as a family member or whoever. And so to me, that's important it's not oh, this is how I am. You get what you get, like it or not. I definitely want to be able to within reason. And I have boundaries with it as well. But like, I definitely want to make sure I tailor what I say and how I respond and how I react for certain people in order to keep that friendship again within reason, and keeping my integrity or keeping who I am. But yeah, I think that, everyone just needs to do what makes them happy at the end of the day, but sometimes that comes with a lot of inside inner work.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. And my last thing, and it's kind of bounce off of what you said. This is one of those things that I've kind of thought of for myself. And if I ever have an issue with someone, or if someone has an issue with me, kind of the way that I divide it in my head as to whether or not this is something that's on me and it's a problem with me, or if it's something that's a problem with them, is if it's something that I think could have potentially been a miscommunication, if it's something that maybe I didn't articulate correctly, if it was something that I wasn't giving my full attention to, and maybe I was a little bit shorter because I was distracted with something else, if it was something that I did and there was a breakdown in communication, then I can say, okay, yeah, that's on me. That's probably a problem with me and something that I caused. And that's the reason why this person does not like me. That's the reason why this person has some kind of issue with me. And I like to know that, like you said, it's not a matter of like, I want to make sure people like me no matter what, and I'll do whatever it takes for people to like me. It's no, if there was a breakdown in communication and I didn't do something or communicate something correctly, then I would love to fix that, because it's an unnecessary problem. Now, if someone has a problem with me because of something that's in my character and something that I stand for, and something that I believe in as a human being, and something that I is just something that's rooted in who I am, my integrity, my character. If they have a problem with that, then they're gonna have to get over it, because that's something that I'm not gonna bend or break on. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you have some kind of issue with, and I'm sure you deal with this all the time, Dad. Like if someone, if like a student tells the truth about something, they felt the desire and the need to tell the truth about something. I'm not saying they snitched on anybody or they were a tattletale, but there's like, Miss McCollum asked me a question. I gave her the honest answer, even if it's at the downfall of other people in the class. The other people in the class may not like that kid for that moment, because like, why'd you do that? You just basically sold us all out. It's like, yeah, but again, she asked me, I told the truth. I value telling the truth. Like, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean? That'd be a tougher thing. So stuff like that. It's like, if it's a character thing that you don't like, well, at that point, unless it's a character flaw, if it's just how I do things and the kind of like the morals, like, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
right.
That's kind of how I've always divided it in my head.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think that's really good advice and a way to end it, because you don't want to jeopardize who you are completely, for that. Like, it's not, we could get into, we could talk about this, but you just want to make sure that you stay true to who you are and find a balance with taking responsibility for, things in your life that aren't going the way you want it to go.
Right. And sorry, one last thing, like you had mentioned, sorry, there is this thought too, like you said, some people have this mentality where it's like, well, this is who I am. You can deal with it, which is fine. You can have that mentality, but also understand you might suck as a person. And if you're okay with that, good for you. But just know people are not going to like you. And there's a good chance it's all your fault, because that's just, you're just saying like, this is who I am, deal with it. It's like, well, yeah, but there might be problems with who you are. And if you want to have that personality, that's fine. But like, I don't personally agree with that. Like you said, I'm not going to bend over backwards to change things about myself just to please you. But I'm willing to look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, is there any truth to what's being said? Do I need to change certain things about myself to improve relationships? Or am I just going to have this mentality where it's like, well, you just got to deal with it because this is who I am? Because in my personal opinion, some people look at that as though, well, that person's being their real, true, authentic self, and they don't care about what other people think. The way I look at that is that you just don't want to look at yourself in the mirror, and you don't want to evaluate yourself for what could be problematic. It's easier to say, well, this is who I am, screw you, deal with it. It's easier to do that. But I think it's much more beneficial if you're like, okay, I am who I am, but let me see if there's anything I can improve. Let me see if there's any growth opportunities here. So, it's interesting. Yeah. It's not an easy topic. It's not a black and white topic by any means.
No. And it's a hard thing to admit to yourself that, to take accountability and responsibility for some things.
Sure. Yep.
There you go.
Okay. Now I'm done.
Okay. Now I'm done.
Deb's looking at me like that's that idiot. He's going to say one more thing. We're trying to wrap this up.
We're going to keep going. We could always keep going with these topics. I could jam out on these topics all day long. But yeah, well, that was good. Thanks for agreeing to talk about this.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a partnership that we're involved in here. So I can't just. Yeah. It would be a problem in me if I didn't let you contribute topics.
Can you imagine? You just put a thumbs down to all my topics I texted you.
No words. Like it's like your pet peeve thing, right? Like the one word answer, like nope, thumbs down.
Yeah.
It'd be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, we can talk for a while. In fact, we've joked about this, and the time is coming up pretty soon in a little while. We have still a little ways to go, but episode 200 is on its. Oh. We're on the way to 200. So.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. So like we've joked before, we may have to do like a super episode.
Yeah.
Like a 2-hour, 3-hour episode.
This is Rogan. Okay.
It's going to be a lot less smart than that for sure. But lengthwise, sure. It'll be a long episode.
No guess. Just the different branched off topics that we would talk about. I can't even imagine all the rabbit holes.
It's on the table.
Yeah.
It's on the table unless you're like, no. But like I said before, Deb might be too nice. She's not going to say no.
I'll just get a coffee. I'll just get a venti sweet vanilla cream cold brew from Starbucks, and I'll be good to go.
That was very specific. All right. Yeah. I'll grab an energy drink. We'll be set.
Nice.
We definitely won't record at this time of night. So,
yeah.
It's actually not even night. It's the middle of the day. We're recording earlier today. Anyways,
Early.
I'm looking outside. It's
Nice.
very bright right now. So anyways, Deb, where can everybody follow us?
You guys can follow us on Twitter at connectablepod and every other social media like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Connectable Podcast.
Yep. And you can follow us and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anything else for the most part. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Yeah, we're almost at, I've said it a couple times, we're almost at 100 subscribers. Now, disappointing news, we lost one this week. So we were down to 97. We were at 98, now we're at 97. So we're moving in the wrong direction. But if you guys can help us, tell a friend, have them subscribe to our channel. You can create a fake account and subscribe to our channel. I don't really care how it happens. We just need to make it happen. Get us to 100. And yeah, like I said, make sure you subscribe. And if you would be so kind, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. We would definitely appreciate that. So we will talk to you guys next week. See y'all. Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.